Welcome to How to Homeschool Radio, the show where we help new and veteran homeschoolers create a successful homeschool that works for their families. Whether you're thinking about homeschooling, just started homeschooling, or have been homeschooling for years, you've come to the right place. I'm your host, Judy Sardin, homeschooling coach, homeschooling mom of two, and author of Sardin's Practical Guide, How to Start Homeschooling. Are you ready? Let's get to it. This is Judy Sardin, and thank you for joining me today. We are going to be talking to Chris Lane. He is a homeschooling dad of two, and he also is a co-founder of Takeoff Performance here in Atlanta. I actually met Chris because my kids were running track and cross country, and I met him. His company does lots of stuff, but they do training. So with me, I met him. He helped get my kids in excellent shape, truly the best shape that they've ever been in. And he's this awesome guy, great family man, great dad. And so I wanted to bring Chris on to talk to you from a dad's perspective about homeschooling. So many people are asking, or usually thinking that the dad doesn't want to homeschool. So I thought it'd be awesome to get a dad who does homeschool himself. And also, he's going to talk to us about how he juggles his business while homeschooling the two babies. So, Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell us about your journey to, how you got here to Atlanta. You started Takeoff, and then life happened in those babies.
Yeah, well, first of all, Judy, thank you for having a platform and a forum for not only for me to be able to speak, but just for as a resource for people to be able to use to give their kids the best experience, not only like in their life, but as they start to, grow and develop into their own people that they felt that they had a good experience, coming up not only with school, but with their family and their parents as well. So thank you for inviting me on. A little bit about me. Originally, I grew up in Miami, Florida. That's where I have two brothers, and my mom and my dad. We all grew up in Miami. And then as I moved on through high school, I ended up going to college in Tampa, Florida. While I was in high school, I met a young lady who is currently my wife today. So we were high school sweethearts. This whole entire journey, we have kind of been through together since we were 15 and 17 years old. So I've got to obviously give a shout out to my wife as well, just because, everything that I've been doing, we've been kind of doing together since we were kids. And I think that's what makes part of the story relatively unique.
Wonderful.
So I went to University of South Florida in Tampa. I played college football there, as well as a biomedical science degree with a minor in public health. I did want to go to medical school. That was always like my dream, like coming up, was to be an anesthesiologist. And, it ended up turning into me wanting to do hospital management, just seeing how particularly people were treated or how their experiences was. So that was why I majored in that. So part of my move to Atlanta was to look into Emory for, hospital management and kind of get my, my doctorate from there. And the out-of-state tuition, just as you know, as a college student, is pretty expensive. My wife her dad already lived up here. So I was like, all right, well, I need to get in-state, and you need to move up there. And we're like, all right, cool. So her and I moved up. In that first year that we were here, we got married. We had kids and started a business in that first year.
Wow.
So I look, 7 years ago now, and it was literally that quick. Like we left Tampa, got to Atlanta, and everything just started.
And you were how old at that time?
At that time, that was 2012. So I was pushing, 24 to 26 age range. That's great.
Young guy, young couple.
Yeah. You see, I can't even remember the years. You asked me how old I was at that time, and I'm like, don't really remember. But so, yeah. And, just after that, it started with, we had the baby, the business was going at the time, and we were working at a restaurant beforehand. And my wife was like, look, I'm going to, stay home with the kids, with our new son. And I'm like, that makes sense. My wife's type 1 diabetic. So she was dealing with some, different things after the pregnancy as well, where she needed to take some time off of work. So she ended up staying home, and I was working the business and two other jobs at the same time. And we just kind of did that for almost 2 to 3 years until we finally put him, my first son, Leo, into a quote unquote daycare. So it was almost 2.5 years that my wife was actually home with my first son.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd already kind of been through what this was like with one person home. So, fast forward 3 to 4 years later, my wife now has a full-time job, and I'm full-time in Takeoff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's around 2017. My wife and I are both working full-time. We have Leo, who's now 3 or 4 years old. He's in, pre-K. He's in all of that stuff. So he's in school, and we've got basically I would say a relatively smooth life. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, are we going to have a second? And we're like, yeah. So after, we have Eli, it's our second son, my wife was able to work a little bit from home, and I was able to work, Takeoff, my sports training business that I've been doing since 2013. And with that gives me a lot of flexibility on my time.
Mm-hmm.
So when my wife went back to work full time, we had spent several years building my business up, and I needed to give her the opportunity to chase her career as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that is how I ended up staying at home with an 8-month-old baby during the day and doing sports training at night, 6 days a week, and coaching football teams. And in that process, I was staying home with my second son. I realized how much I missed of my first son's life. Just being at work and going through all that. And I wanted to not reconcile that, but I wanted to have a way that he would know who I was, mm-hmm. and to where I could get the time to spend time with him. And because of my business being in the afternoon, I was able to say, all right, well, he's 5 years old. Compulsory age in Georgia is 7. Mm-hmm. Maybe I keep him out of school a year and really just work on enrichment and academics. And, my wife is Cuban. He needs to learn Spanish. So his languages, mm-hmm. I wanted to spark his creativity. I wanted to say, all right, well, what does he like to do? What do I like to do that he likes to do? And then just normal life skills. Like, he's a door holder every day, because everywhere we go, he holds doors. He greets everybody every day. He's responsible for all these things that he does around the house, around setup and cleanup. So he's actually learning life skills that sometimes if you are just in school, you're not actually doing it with your parents and getting to do it with them. So with all of that is how we got to this spot of I am home with my first son, Leo, and I'm homeschooling him. And I just recently have taken my youngest son, the 1.5-year-old, the 18-month-old, out of daycare, so that I can spend these next 2 months over the holidays with them. Mm-hmm. So our family's coming in and out, and we're cleaning the house and decorating the house. I really wanted to be connected to them through this process. So I now have both of them home. Not to mention the daycare costs are...
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah, everybody who's listening to this knows about those daycare costs. Chris, I think so much here that you said. So I want to back you up. A couple of things. Okay, first off, you just talked about all the things that Leo is learning by being at home. And you talked a little bit about, I know you do a little bit of academics, but you are so focused on life skills, real world stuff. I mean, I see him, he's with you at Takeoff, he's with you where you are, and he's learning. He sees Dad running his business. He's learning so much from Dad. I'd like you to really talk about what, and sometimes I wonder if dads parent differently. When you talk to moms, they're all concerned about, learning letters, learning numbers. Talking to you about the things that you're wanting your son to teach are so vastly different from what I typically hear moms focusing on for a 4 or 5-year-old. So tell me, can you talk a little bit more about really how you're working on the whole child and not just academics?
Yeah, and I think well, first I will definitely say I think it's a combination of both. My wife, mm-hmm. she does do very similar things with the letters and the numbers, and they're always practicing. I'm not sure if that's just something they like to do with their mom. That's just kind of where it's at. But I do have two boys, so it may be different for someone with two daughters, or maybe different with someone that has split kids. But for me, I think that boys need their dads around, right? And if they just see daddy going to work and coming home, that's who they think you are. And I think that very similarly for on the mom side, right? If they just see mom always doing stuff for them and doing stuff around the house and not being like, no, we're going to do this together and you're going to be responsible for it. Mm-hmm. I feel like it shows up on both sides. And I think that that's for me just the spot of, okay, well, yeah, you have an academic life that may be 5 or 6 hours of your day, even if you're in college. Mm-hmm. But the rest of your life, like you're a person, you've got to deal with people. You've got to, be able to deal with your past. You got to be able to live in the present and then, talk about the things that you want as you go forward. And that helps the schoolwork when mm-hmm. you have a clear picture of, okay, what do we want to get done today? Okay, so you want to go to the park. Well, if you want to go to the park, these are the 4 or 5 or 6 things that need to be done. Not all of them are academic. Yes. Some of them are your room being clean. Some of them are you need to memorize these letters. Some of them are you need to organize this area. Some of them are, okay, this is a trip that we're taking to the bank. You're going to hold the receipt. You're going to be responsible for the money that we deposit. So it's just getting him to understand, like, I work and I run a business, but I also have to live my life.
Love that. So I was actually just reading on as one of the Facebook forums where a dad, well, typically it's not always this way. Sometimes it's the dad wants the mom to homeschool and she doesn't want to, but typically it's a totally different vibe. Typically the mom who doesn't want to homeschool feels like she's not qualified or doesn't want to be at home with the kids all day. And typically when it's the dad who has the objection, which I've just personally seen, it's usually that. Dads are saying, well, if they're learning, I want them to be tested every week so I can see what they're learning. And they're very concerned about testing, and they're very concerned about socialization. So can you speak to the dads who are concerned about, straight academics, and also the socialization?
Yeah, well, first I'll speak on the socialization. I'm very lucky that I have a business that I work with kids because he's always around kids of multiple ages, right? So he's got some 13 or 14-year-old friends that, are a little bit older and they're like big brother, like little brother to him that are some of my 14-year-old athletes. I've got coaches that are around him that are like uncles and aunts. And then I've got athletes that are maybe 2 or 3 years older than him that he looks up to. And then he's got his little brother and all his friends that he's able to say, oh, well, I'm the cool kid. I'm the big brother. So in that, he's got a lot of the socialization in what I do. And just from my research, I'm finding there's so much activities for kids to do to socialize. If it's not PE, but there's events that are going on there at the library, at the malls, at all these different places for that. And I think, that's just the piece that we've just got to work on as a community of homeschoolers is getting more activities that are aligned for socialization is what I will say. On the academic side, my mom is a federal judge and, my dad was a stockbroker and worked in finances for a long time. And I just think that discipline in my schoolwork was always something that I had because it was instilled in me. So anything that the parents want, if a dad wants to test their kid, there can be standardized tests that, they get from the programs that they're in. Mm-hmm. And I would also say, all right, well, what do you want them to be tested on? And actually put like input and say, well, I want these 10 things tested on, and say, all right, well, why do you want them tested on? Well, because when I was a kid, I had to do this. Okay, well, there's backstory to it, right? So I think that some flexibility in the program will allow a dad to step in and have the feel confident and being like, all right, like I can be involved. And it's not like, oh, you're not involved. I'm the homeschool teacher and, mm-hmm. You just need to go to work. It's like, no, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Well, what I like what you said, Chris, is that dad should be involved. If that's what dad wants, dad needs to be involved. I can tell you, I mean, you know my husband, you've met him, and he's
I have.
hands off. So
Yeah.
I pretty much run the business of raising the children at home. And, he's just like, I trust you, whatever. He's very hands off. But I think that for the dads who do want accountability, because at the end of the day, I think it's about accountability. I don't think there's anything wrong with accountability. That's why I have the kids. We're not required here in Georgia, but I do try to have them standardized tested every year, just for my own accountability. And so, but I think if what you said is the dad be involved. Okay, dad, if you want your kid to have a certain body of knowledge, then hop in, get involved. I think that often moms feel like dads just kind of say someone who's like my husband, who's totally hands off, but then he comes home and is demanding, I want to test, I want to see this, I want to see that. I think there's a way to do it. And from a man's perspective, what do you what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I just have to make and I do this for my athletes a lot. I make like correlations. When I'm watching a football game, and I love football like most dads, or they love a sport or golf or whatever it is, like you're cheering for other people for 4 or 5 hours, right? If it's a football game,
Mm-hmm.
if it's a tailgate during the game and then after the game, right? You're cheering for somebody for 4 or 5 hours. If you are not cheering for your kid, like verbally or with your actions or with your presence, like if you're not actually doing that for one day out of the week, then I think it's hard to hold them accountable to the standardized part, because the kids, from their perspective, they don't care what you know, they just care that you care.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's the hard part for adults, particularly males, to look at a 8 or 9 year old boy or girl and be like, I'm your dad, you do what I say. And they're like, well, I just care. I just want you to be here for me. They don't really care the results of the majority of things. And that's just because of my experience working with so many kids over the past 7 years. By the time they're 13, they're in their room, they're off doing their own friends. You don't have a time to parent them anymore. You have this small window leading up to from when they're 5 and they can comprehend to when they're 13. So these 8 years, you've got to pick some time in that 8 years to really dedicate to them. And I think if you're going to dedicate 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 years to your job or to your business, that you can pick a little bit of that time and plan it out as a business owner, as an executive, or whatever level you're at in your company or whatever business that you work, that you as a dad can set that time aside. And I say vice versa for a mom. If the mom wants to stay at home, she should feel free to, understanding that with one income coming into the house, that things are going to need to be adjusted. But I think that you get the benefits of the mom being at home and being there for the kids and being there for the dad, and also their ability and freedom to then work a business from home or work a part-time job is something that they want to do. Because as you know, unfortunately this world runs on money, and we all got to have a way to pay for things at the end of the day. So I think that it's a balance between my wife working, me working, and the daycare costs, the kids and the schooling. And, we have no issue paying the money for their education, but we just want it to be at the right time and at the right place for them. So I'm only also keeping my son out for this year. I am putting him in kindergarten next year to see how he does.
Mm-hmm. So you're basically taking a wait and see approach. And that's what I tell everybody, just it's 1 year at a time. And so I know when you and I talked about, when you were thinking about it, tell us why you decided to pull him out of school. And I know because I know from talking to you, it was more than just financially motivated. Why did you decide to take this year with Leo to do this homeschooling that you're doing?
Yeah, well, first off, it was, I do a lot of visualization and affirmation for myself personally. And this was not one of the things that I saw coming.
Yeah, right. Me either.
I saw coming or planned for or anything like that. And I think that that for me was the reason why I took the opportunity, because I was like, of all the planning I do, of all of the people I talk to, this was never a conversation. So something must be being trying to shown to me right now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like somebody must be trying to show me something. There's a lesson that I need to learn from this. And is it at the cost of my business? Maybe, maybe not. Is it at the cost of other things? Yeah, maybe. But if I don't take this opportunity now, I'm never going to know. And I'm always going to look back and regret in a way, right, that I didn't take the 1 year to enrich my kid that I could have because of my job situation, my wife's job situation. Everything just lined up. And sometimes you just got to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what this was about. This was about listening to my son. This is about listening to my wife for where she was at. And then me listening to, my business, and where it needed me was, a position where I started to step out of it and let it run on its own. And I would not have done that if I was not homeschooling. I would still be doing the day-to-day,
Mm-hmm.
and my business would not be growing, creating opportunities for other people, which is what I want to do at the end of the day. And I think that, like I said, that's what this forum that you started, Judy, is, because there's a lot of fear around homeschooling because there's
Yes.
a stigma around it. To be quite honest, if you want to say 100%, and it's like the socialization, the academics, how does the parent be the parent, the teacher, and the person to that kid? Is it good or bad for the relationship? Like all those questions that are there. Is it good that the dad's always away sometimes
Mm-hmm.
because they've got to work and then the mom is doing everything? Like, is it brings up those questions? But I think
not good.
I think for me, I had to see the opportunity, and now it's leading to this where I can be like, hey, look, if you're in this position and it's something you want to do, you can do it for a period of time. And it doesn't have to be forever. If you want to do it for 3 years, 5 years, 2 years, 1 year, 6 months, take them out and say, hey, look, school's not working right now. There's programs you can do.
That, and that you're exactly right. And there's so much fear. And I like what you said about, it doesn't have to be forever. Because a lot of people will say, I just had this conversation with somebody. She wanted to homeschool her kid, but she felt like she wasn't good in math. Okay, how old is your kid? Your kid is going to first grade. So I was like, okay, do you think you can do first grade math? Yeah, but I wasn't good in high school math. I'm like, but your kid is in first grade. Can you do first grade?
Right.
Can you do second grade? We got all the way up to fifth grade, and she felt good grade 1 through 5. So I'm like, look, take it 1 year at a time. And so every year is going to be different. Your situation is going to be different. Kids are going to be a different space. You're going to be in a different place. And so getting over the fear of forever and, oh my gosh, you might decide to put Leo in school in January, but you have these 6 months. Just do it. And I like that you felt like you were being pulled that way, and so you just decided to do it. I love that. So since you've been home with the children, again, and I love having a man on here, tell me some of the things or some of the challenges that you maybe were surprised about being at home with the kids. I mean, I know you've always been a hands-on dad, but tell me some of the challenges that you've found that you were surprised about being the caregiver for 2 small children.
It's definitely equivalent to more work than work. Is what I will say. There's times it is equivalent and there's times that it's more, because, at the end of the day, when you're at work, like, yeah, it's your livelihood, but in the back of your head, you're like, okay, well, they can fire me any day and I'm going to have to move on, but I still have my family, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's like that side of it where it's like, okay, like, yeah, I'm working, but this work at home is more work because I care. It's more work because I am going to think ahead. I am going to remember what happened. I am going to try to be present. And I think that that's been the biggest shift for me, because I can do that. And I was really focused on work and I could do that. But I had to learn how to focus on my family without making them feel like they were working. Because I think that's the hard part for dads sometimes, is that we take work and we bring the work mindset home, or it's completely opposite and it's like throw paint everywhere, throw, spaghetti everywhere. It doesn't matter. And the mom per se has been home all day cleaning, right? So I think that that's the part for me that I've got a little respect for both sides that a lot of people may not have because they've only done one or the other. Mm-hmm. I've done both, right? I've been fully invested in my work 7 days a week, running a business, working jobs, managing people, doing all that. And I've been on the other side where now I'm like sitting at home, like, am I going to get on this phone call today? It might not happen. And that person is going to have to understand that right now in this situation, my family's first. So those are the difficulties. It's just the time disappears. I mean, you wake up, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon when you look up and it's like, what happened? So the time disappearing, putting the effort and energy in, and communicating with a child, right? That doesn't know what you know and can't have the same conversation that you can have. Mm-hmm. So you're talking in two different languages in a way, especially when you got a toddler and a baby, or I've only got 2 kids. I know some dads and moms are dealing with 3, 4, 5 kids, and potentially a cousin or a nephew or a niece at the same time because the other person is at work, right? So the brother's kids are at work. Anything on there? Come here.
And that's exactly right.
And this is my son Leo. That's all right now. Say hi,
Leo.
Say hey.
And that so right there.
What's going on right here? Right now. He's sneaking into the kitchen, and I'm just hoping he doesn't climb on the counter. To be honest with you.
That right there. I love it. So, okay, awesome. So since you have been at home, you're showing me when I saw you, you have come up with a system for packing meals because when you pack up the kids, you take them out. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things with kids is keeping them fed and not thirsty and the bathrooms and everything like that. Right. So I'm basically, I am a fitness coach with what I do. So a lot of the meals that I have to make are, meals that I have to meal prep. So what I've done now is basically made meals for myself that my kids also eat, right? So when I do this, I have a certain amount of meal packaging that I have, and I portion it for each person. So I have one portion for me, one portion for my 5-year-old son, and then apparently one portion for my 18-month-old son because he eats as much as my 5-year-old son. So now I just have basically 3 portions that I'm putting together. And I do that with everything that I do, all of my meals during the day and at night. And it just makes it to where I'm cooking one particular time for 15 to 20 minutes, and that's it. And it makes my life so much easier instead of me having to make and clean breakfast, make and clean lunch, make and clean snacks. It's all done at one time, and I package everything up, put it in the fridge in a bag, and it is done for the day. And it takes 30 minutes of my time instead of 3 hours that it was taking before.
Okay. You're going to have to go into more detail of that, Mr., because I need some of this, what you're talking about.
Yeah, no. And what I've done is I had to take pictures at first, right? Because I was like, oh, this is a good idea. And then I just took a picture. And then it was like, oh, this is a good idea. And took a picture. And then eventually I had a compilation of pictures, and I went to the store, bought everything. And then my wife and I set up the menu every week, Monday through Friday during the week. We set up a menu. It takes us 10 minutes on Sunday. And we put out that menu. We used to work at a restaurant, so we got some restaurant skills. And so I just think that we kind of took it like, all right, well, if it costs, food is expensive. I mean, it really is when you have to feed everybody, right? When you have to feed everybody, and it's gotten to the point where I was like, I don't want this to be this high anymore, and I started to make adjustments, and those adjustments led to this kind of meal packing system that I use for the kids, where they'll get every meal will already be preset. They'll get a protein and a vegetable, or a protein and a green, and they'll get a protein and a starch, and it's very simple. I mean, I can go into detail the hours that I've spent, just not doing it the right way. But I would say that advice to any parent is to get a menu that your kids like and start to prepare the stuff that they like and see if there's anything in that you can pair with something that you're doing for your meals. And I think that that's like the way to start. And you just got to kind of take the step and take the 30 minutes to write a menu and to really look at what you're purchasing from the store and how it can be combined together.
Now, Chris, when you showed me the pictures, it was all fresh food.
Yes.
And so I'm not one, I don't buy snacks, and I know people are all over the place with that, but I try to have whole foods available. The only snacks we have downstairs are apples and oranges and pomegranates. The whole pomegranate. If you ever want your kid to sit down for like an hour, give them a pomegranate, because it will take them forever to pick all those little seeds out.
Exactly.
But anyway, so that's one of the things that I love about your meal plans. Are they available someplace that maybe people who, because your meal plans are whole foods, and I pointed out to the children, whenever we go to the grocery store and we only buy real food, whole foods, even if we go to Whole Foods, I can walk out of Whole Foods with 4 bags of groceries for around $100 if it's just Whole Foods.
Right.
The minute I start adding processed food, the bill, that's when you're walking out of Whole Foods with 1 bag and it was, $300. And so, I know how you're keeping your bills down, because what I saw in your meal plans were Whole Foods.
Yes. And what I will say is right now, my wife and I are putting together a video of a shopping trip that we're going to take and kind of cover some of this stuff. And it's going to have basically a menu with it, with the pictures of the meals. So it would be like Monday through Friday, it would have the words in the menu, and then it'll have the pictures of the meals on the bottom and the way that you can plate it. And it's very simple. And I think that would be something I'd be willing to, not only to share with you, but, the main thing is that all I've done in the past have been shopping trips. I've gone with people to the store and say, well, look, let's spend this hour, show me what you're doing. And we just work together on it. So I think that would be the main thing is once I get everything together from the shopping trip video, that I get that to you. And then you can share that and say, all right, well, if you want to get tips on how to meal prep for your kids, this is from an athletic sports coach who is also feeding his 2 growing boys who thinks he's Spider-Man and swings off everything and does gymnastics and wants to run track and plays football. I mean, these are athletic kids. So even for those parents who are trying to, maybe have their kid get into better shape, right? Mm-hmm. Who may have gotten out of shape or may want to play video games all day. It's like, hey, look, let's adjust the way we eat. And I think that is, kind of another thing is like their health, their long-term health, like, them understanding like they got to eat fresh fruit and fruits and have their food groups in their meals, because if not, they're just going to get used to chips and cookies, which, I mean, let's be honest, they taste good. How are you going to tell a kid, look, don't eat Cheetos. Those are bad for you. They're like, no, this does not taste bad for me. So I think that it's things like that. So
that's awesome. And so I'll have, as you get that done, I'll put it in the show notes so that people can access it. Chris, how can people, especially if they're in the Atlanta area, how can people learn about you? And I can just tell you that one of the things that I really love about Chris is that he meets kids where they are. And so he's worked with my kids who are pretty good little athletes, and he pushes them.
Oh yeah. They can run. They used to have me out there screaming.
Yes. But your kids don't have to be athletic, or they don't have to be athletes. I've talked to several people who work with Chris while I'm waiting for my kids, and everybody compliments him on how he meets their kids where they are. And so he's motivating. He's, he really can find a great balance between pushing and motivating and meeting your kids where they are. So even if your kids are those couch potatoes, Chris, tell us about your after school programs that you have at Takeoff, and I'll make sure I have a link to your program in the show notes, and any other links where people can find you. But tell us about your after school programs.
Yeah, I would say the best place just to find me would be, it would be on our website, just because that's like the home for everything that we do. It's linked to Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram.
And the name of it is?
It's Takeoff Performance Systems. We kind of took, a way of preparing for a rocket ship launch is the way that we wanted to prepare our athletes, to where look, you're going on a long journey and you may not be back. You got to have everything that you need before you go. So we do offer, private individual training programs where we work one-on-one with athletes or adults, and that's customized to whatever that person in particular is looking for. We also have our weekly fitness and speed agility classes that run Monday through Sunday. And they're in the afternoons. We have elementary age classes, middle school classes, high school classes, and we also do all the sports. So soccer, football, lacrosse, tennis, basketball. We do a little bit of everything. We have been doing this for 7 years in the Atlanta area. We work with several schools, leagues, parks, and our main purpose is to just impact the athletes in a way that they know that they're an athlete and a person, and that they need to be able to focus on both and build both, as well as somebody who may not particularly be an athlete, that they can do things to stay in shape and have fitness and have a good social group outside of the other academics that they may have. So if they're in band, or if they're in a math club, or if they're in robotics, we have a lot of athletes. We had a champion chess player that came for workouts last summer, and he came the whole summer. He's like, yeah, I just wanted to work out with some of my friends, and he's a champion chess player. Mm-hmm. Now, he doesn't play athletics, but he came and had a great time. So we have a mixture of, boys and girls. Girls are a huge component to our business. It is not just male athletes. It is male and female athletes from all walks of life. So that is what we do after school. And we also have stuff during the day. I work with several homeschool students for performance training who play baseball and all these different sports. They come to me at 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. I have adults and parents that come to me 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. Kids with adjusted schedules who may go to school, like at a Christian school from 9 to 12, who come to me at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So it is a organization that we have. We have 10 to 15 coaches. It is not just me. So it started as just me and my business partner and my wife, and has just expanded from there.
And again, you can't see Chris, but he's in great shape. And I love again how encouraging he is.
He makes me run a lot.
So Chris, just kind of parting shots, if you will, to a family who's thinking about embarking on homeschooling, or even if you want to speak specifically to the dads, because we like I said, we never have a man on. So I'm so excited to have a homeschooling dad. So why don't I just ask you to speak, to the dads who are, because my husband wasn't really excited about it when I first mentioned it to him, but if you could speak to the dads about the opportunities that you found that that your children have that they wouldn't have if they were in a school.
Yeah. Well, I think that, first of all, I love my parents and my wife's parents and what they've done for us to get us to this particular point in our life. And I think that it's our responsibility to pass something on to our kids. And I think that is what they did for me. And I think that that's the main thing that I want to do for my kids. So me particularly as a dad, do I have personal aspirations to business-wise and things that I want to do? Yes, 100%. And I work hard on them every day, and I grind on them every day and all night, and have sleepless nights and have the same things that every other person who is out there wanting to better their life. whether it's a dad or a mom, whoever that is, I'm doing the same things that they're doing. But I challenge them to also have some insight and energy and foresight and sacrifice to a little bit of their family as well in that same light, and putting in that structure or some type of structure. So if you're not going to homeschool, then their homework structure when they get home needs to be tight, right? If you are going to homeschool, then you need to make sure that your socialization structure is tight. That's a responsibility, I think, on both sides, right? To where it's like, oh no, like I'm not really for homeschooling, let them be in school. Well, then you need to make sure that when they get home from school, that their after school activities are structured, because these are kids, and you need to be present. I understand about one way or the other my career. I understand about that. I understand about my wife's career, or one is whatever that is. But there is a way that we have to progress forward and understand that the things that these kids are dealing with are not what we dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's even me. I'm 31 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, my kids are not dealing with the same thing. My 1-year-old grabs my cell phone. and you there's no way to, I mean, they're going to know more than us.
Right.
So what we have to do is say, all right, how do you learn? Mm-hmm. Focus on how they learn. Focus on how you learn, because in this process, I become a better businessman. I become a better father from having to do that. I become a better husband from having to work with my wife and do, like, all that stuff has happened because of this. So even if you're not trying to decide whether to homeschool or not, it's a conversation to have. Well, if we did homeschool, what would we do? And if we're not going to homeschool, what are we going to do? Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, it's always homeschool. Mm-hmm. When they get home from school, right, or whether you homeschool them, it's always homeschool. Your kids are learning from you. It's always homeschool. And if they learn that mom does this for me and she's always going to do it for me, when they get older, they're going to do it on their own. If they learn that dad's always at work and they never been to your work, their thought of you when you get older is going to be, dad was always at work. Yeah. I love my dad, but he was always at work. And it's like, you have to choose what you want. And there's no knock on anybody that lived that life, because right, they can always reconnect. They can always right, do that. But this is I think each person's choice of, like you said, even with an adult, where are you at right now? Meet yourself where you're at. And if you feel that this is yes, something that you've always wanted to do, then why are you not doing it? And if it's something that you never thought of, why have you never thought of it? And I think that just opening the conversation up from both sides is what's going to make whatever comes from this that you're doing, Judy, the return on this is going to be major for these kids, for these parents, and even, I believe, for the non-homeschool kids, because things are going to get implemented at home that make things easier. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. And actually, I just thought of one thing I want to circle back on. You talked about you had the chess guy that you were working with the chess guy.
Yes.
A lot of people, especially homeschool people, will say, oh, my kid's not athletic. My kid's not athletic. Talk to why it's important for those so-called non-athletic kids to still to get out there and train and do the physical activities that you can provide, because I think that's so important.
Yeah, I think confidence is huge, being able to confidently achieve things or be around other people. I think that discipline is major when it's, okay, well, I said we're going to do this a particular amount of times. We're going to do it this amount of times until we get it. So discipline, perseverance, as well as just an energy outlet. I feel like whatever energy outlet, like we're physical beings, like we're made to move. We're made to move. Although our brains are very smart, like we're made to move. Like that is, we walk. You don't have to be an athlete to walk, to run, to get low and do a squat or do lunges or play with a ball. You don't have to be an athlete to do that. You can just be a person and have fun doing what Takeoff does, and have fun, being just in better shape and better fit. And the energy shows. I think that's proven.
Sure.
If a kid gets up and does more things, he's going to want to get up and do more things.
Right.
Which I think that's what you want. When they sit down, they just want to sit down.
Right. Awesome. All right, great. Thank you so much, Chris. And thank you, Leo and Eli, for allowing us to talk to Dad for an hour.
Oh, of course. And I just want to make sure that, Judy, thank you for this. Shout out to all the dads out there. Shout out to all the moms out there, because at the end of the day, we're all trying to get to the same goal. However we get it, we're all in it together. I've got a 1 and 5-year-old, so some of you guys may know where I'm at. Some of you guys may be laughing at me because you guys are like, he has no clue what he's dealing with right now. Wait till he gets a 10-year-old.
Right. Wait to the mouth.
Yeah, wait till the mouth. Wait till the mouth starts. So they're looking at me like, oh yeah, he's living in La La Land.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris.
All right, thanks, Judy. We'll talk soon.
Hey, one more thing before you go. As a valued member of How to Homeschool Radio, I want to help you and hear from you not only when you're listening to the show, but all day, every day. I have a new Facebook group called How to Homeschool, and it's a place where you can get together with other homeschooling families to get support, offer support, and interact real-time to homeschooling issues that are most important to you. If you want to be a part of this growing community, see the latest videos, and get live answers to your homeschooling questions, go to judysarden.com/homeschool podcast. Or you can just hop onto Facebook and search for How to Homeschool under groups. Drop me a note to let me know when you join. I can't wait to see you there.